Hey, everybody, welcome to the Lund Loop Daily Update for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. Little Gary Newman there, apropos. My shirt. See that? That is the pixelated cover of Gary Newman's third album, The Pleasure Principle. Gary Newman, kids. So, this has been a very interesting summer. Let's recap. If you're a Lund Loop subscriber, you will remember that after this big run that we had starting in late March, where the market just relentlessly marched higher, we had this day right here. It was an odd day. Market was down only 0.75%, but a lot of the high flyers underneath the hood that day dropped 5, 10, even 15%. And I put out a post that day and I said, is it time to write yourself a big fat check? And the point I made there was, hey, we've had a lot of big winners. We had Poet, which was up 101% in 1 week. We had Oscar, which is up 100%. We had OPTX, which is up 200%. Those are just active investment names, not even the names that have been coming on and off the daily updates list. We made a lot of money here. And guess what? We're going into the summer months, and that's a really odd move here. Market down 0.75%, but lots of names down up to 15%. So I said, I've raised a lot of cash. I'm writing myself a check. If you're going to trade like a boss, you got to pay yourself like a boss. And I was doing it so that I could step back and not have to get into the weeds and watch every tick in what I thought was going to be kind of a choppy summer. By the way, that also turned out to be the highs of the Qs. And if you look back on some of the high beta momentum names that have imploded the last couple months, this turned out to be the day that a lot of them formed the beginning of what was like a left shoulder in a topping or a head and shoulder type pattern. So anyway, that day, I said, let's get some cash. Let's step back. Let's relax. And because we did that, we didn't have to sit there and fight in this chop, this frustration. By the way, also not involved in the names that dropped 50, 60, 70%. In fact, what I was doing during this time was making the case that software was overdone. The narrative was that AI was going to kill software. Software was never going to come back. And so what a lot of Lund Loop subscribers did is they used that active investment muscle to build positions in some names that they thought were going to eventually be higher. Now, what's the active investing? That is when you're getting into positions, you're breaking your positions up into 5 tranches. You're getting in slowly. You're selling puts to get in. You're selling calls against partials to bring down your cost basis. You're massaging a position in over time to get the best cost basis, but also so you don't get blown out, so that you're not putting your whole position in right here and then you can't hang and then it bounces back. Well, guess what? Today was payday. Yesterday and today were payday. And a lot of these names that people have been picking up here strategically at their leisure without looking at every tick paid off. Names like Path, which finally broke out today. Names like IG. Look at that, 30% in one day. I've had more than a half a dozen people tell me today, just DM me and say, this is my best day ever. Meaning they made the most money ever today, or the combination of the last 2 days. In addition, they didn't get wiped out over the last couple months. And I love hearing that. This was my best day ever, by quite a margin. And the funny thing is, very few of those positions that contributed to my P&L today are what I would call trading names. Again, they're those active investments that we're hoping to hold for a while, but we're getting in at good cost basis. But I'll tell you another reason why today is the best day ever. It really doesn't have to do with how much money I or anybody else in the community made. I mean, that's great. But the most important thing for me is to try and help shepherd everybody in this community away from risk, right? I look at the market almost as it's in segments, right? And I want to identify when we're going into a risk off segment. And I want to identify when we're going back into a risk on segment. I want to try to massage our way through those so that people don't get hurt. I look at today as the end of a segment, right? So if we go back here, this is where it started, right? And then this is this big segment, and then boom, it's resolved. It doesn't matter if the market drops 10,000 points tomorrow. Everybody got their chance to cash out here. This segment is done, as far as I'm concerned. And nothing makes me happier than helping this community avoid disaster, as well as letting them know when it's time to get back in. For example, back here during the COVID crisis, when I put out this post, the problem bears face right now, and I explained that the bears had overstayed their welcome, that the COVID low was in, and that we were probably going higher, right? That's a signal. Let's get back in. Let's make some money. Same deal back in 2022. Horrific market, just relentlessly down. Every rally got sold off until here. And that's when I put out this post, 9 reasons why we may have seen the market bottom this week, 2 of which were Kramer crying on air. And sure enough, that was the bottom of the market. Time to get back in, time to make money. How about here during the tariff tantrum? Everybody was talking about the American century being over, about how the rest of the world was going to shun us economically. And I put out a post here, said there's always a reason to sell. And I made the argument that there's no way it's over for the United States. And if you're betting against the United States, you're making the wrong bet. And then when we had this big reversal bar right here, I said, was that the bottom? And I argue why this candle here signaled the end of the tariff tantrum, and it was time to, again, get back in and make some money. Or how about here, when everyone said, oh, this is just a counter trend rally that we're starting. And I argued, no, this is the perfect reversal candle. And then on this bar, I said, are we ready to go? We ready to rally? And on this one, set up perfection right there. Right before that long, long run that went up into that day when hopefully we all paid ourselves. And just this past Wednesday, on this day right here, I was on Spaces and I was asked, what's the catalyst to stop the market going down? And I said, you know what? You never know what the catalyst is going to be. But what I think needs to happen is there needs to be some market mechanics. Something needs to blow up, a structured product or a hedge fund. And guess what? The next day, Leopold. We found out that situational awareness blew up. And by the way, that doesn't cause the bottom. It's just a sign of the bottom, right? These things blow up at extremes, and extremes are where you see the turns. And here we are 1, 2, 3 trading days later at all-time highs. So today was a great day on a lot of levels, but I look at this as just another segment of the market that we're now done with. We can get into the next segment. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it really, really makes me happy to know that we have a whole community that did not blow up, that people saved tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars. Yeah, we're not going to be the first people into a name. We might not be in the hottest names, but we're sure enough not going to be the last people out. And we're going to do everything we can in this community to help each other, to make sure that we are trading and investing in a way that gives us longevity, where we can build our wealth over time in a risk intelligent way. And I always say this, we don't make money for the hell of it. We make money for financial freedom, for financial stability, and a foundation for our family so that we can support the causes and people we care about. And when you get a ring the register day today at the end of a segment and everybody's safe and sound and checking their P&Ls, it just feels great. So, all right, let's get to the actual action today, shall we? The bid under this market was relentless today. Remember yesterday we talked about this, that spread at the open between the 5, the 9, and the 20. And the wider that spread is, that means the more aggressive the buying. Look at this. Look at how incredible this is. We were not able to close below the 5 EMA on the 5-minute chart until 9:10 Pacific time. We didn't close below the 9 until 11 Pacific time. And we didn't close below the 20 all day long until the very end when we had a little bit of profit taking. That is amazing action right there. That's not just a market of new buyers. That's a market of people covering. And you know, this could be the start of something new. Let's go through the indexes here. And let's just start.